The Gemara tells us that there was a machlokes between the other Tanoim and Reb Shimon bar Yochai with regard to whether the Torah would be forgotten from the Jewish nation. The other Tanoim felt and foresaw that the Torah would be forgotten, but Reb Shimon bar Yochai stood up and very strongly declared the pasuk in Devarim, Ki lo yishakach mipi zarei. It will not be forgotten from his descendants. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov reveals that the Sofei Tevos, the closing letters of the words Ki lo yishakach mipi zarei, actually spell the word Yochai. And so the word Zarei, his descendants, is a reference to Reb Shimon bar Yochai himself, who would centuries later utilize this pasuk as a proof text to this vision of the Torah chas v'shalom not being forgotten from the Jewish nation. Of course, a famous question asked by many of the tzaddikim is, what exactly was this machlokas about? There's a famous rule in halacha: you can't have a machlokes b'metzias. If you're having an argument about something and it's a fact, it's a reality, so there's no room for discord, there's no room for contention. If the Tanoim foresaw with Ruach HaKodesh what they saw, how could Reb Shimon bar Yochai stand up and present a different vision? What was the truth with regard to what would happen with the Torah? Would it be forgotten or wouldn't it be forgotten? How could they be having a machlokas b'metzias with regard to a reality that both of them were looking at? And the tzaddikim explain, or Rabbi Nachman hints to this in that opening piece. It's called Hashmata. It's the teaching with which Likutei Moharan begins. Even before Torah Aleph, it's a small little teaching right in the beginning. Rabbi Nachman hints to this, but the tzaddikim teach that the truth is the other Tanaim were seeing the spectrum and the scene without the involvement of Reb Shimon bar Yochai. They saw Metzias before Reb Shimon stood up, and as we'll say in a minute, took responsibility. From their perspective, the Torah was going to be forgotten because Reb Shimon hadn't yet stood up. But when Reb Shimon bar Yochai stood up and declared, Ki lo yishakach mipi zarei, it wasn't only a reference to this opinion that he would proclaim later on in history, but he was actually taking personal responsibility to see to it that the Torah wouldn't in fact be forgotten. So it wasn't a machlokes in Metzias. There was a question of how they were looking at the Metzias. The Tanoim saw it without Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon stood up and took responsibility to see to it that the Torah wouldn't be forgotten. Because Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, of course, is revealing the Zohar HaKadosh. And the Zohar HaKadosh is referred to as Nishmasa D'Oraisa. It's referred to as the soul of the Torah. All the other levels of the Torah, Pshat, Remez, Drush, certainly on the Pshat level, the halachas of the Torah, are referred to as Hein Gufei halachas. They're connected to the concept of body, practicality, this worldliness, in the world of Asiya, how to do things, how to behave like a Jew, and how to fulfill Ratzon Hashem in a way of action. But the Zohar HaKadosh reveals the deeper meanings, those elements of ethical, moral, spiritual teachings that all of the halachos are supposed to serve as vessels for. That's the nishmasa, that's the neshama, the nishmasa d'oraisa that Rabbi Shimon is revealing. And if you think about it very deeply, the longevity of something is reliant not on the body, but on the soul. The body fades away. Rachmana litzlan, a person's soul leaves their body. In a matter of hours, a matter of days, the body decomposes. Anything that's going to last needs to be bound up and infused with neshama. And so if Reb Shimon bar Yochai is revealing the teachings of the Zohar, and he's saying, like he does in the Zohar Kadosh, Ki b'safra da yafkan be mingalusa berachne, that by way of involvement and engagement with the teachings of the Sefer, and all of its multifarious expressions later on in history from all the tzaddikim, rishonim, and achronim, the mekubalim, the Musar masters, the Hasidic masters, certainly, when we engage in this, Yafkun Beim and Galusa Barachmi, we'll make it to the end. And not just, sort of trying to trip over ourselves and barely making it. We'll march out, Ki b'simcha seitzeyu, with a tremendous amount of joy. Ki b'sifra da Yafkun Beim and Galusa. Why? Because the teachings of the Zohar are the neshama of Yiddishkeit. And the neshama is connected to eternality. It's only the guf, it's only the body that will decompose. And so therefore Reb Shimon is able to say, the Torah will make it. And Am Yisrael will make it till the finish line. This is the Torah for our generation. But perhaps we can suggest something deeper with regard to the concept of shikha, forgetfulness. Chazal tell us that where was shikha rooted? When did forgetfulness come to the world? This concept of being able to forget something. And Chazal say very clearly, when the luchos were broken, when Moshe Rabbeinu threw down the luchos, that was the place where shikha was rooted, b'shikha la'olam. When those luchos were shattered and broken into a million pieces on the floor, that caused for the ability for our internal luchos, the Torah we learn, other information we process, to become broken as well, which is the concept of forgetfulness and the inability to piece pieces of information together as we once were, b'shikha la'olam. Here's a very, very deep thing. The Zohar is revealing a spiritual reality. Realities that exist on the world of soul, like we said, the neshmasa de oraisa. Where is multiplicity, disparity, the very premise of brokenness, the ability for something to break apart? And the answer is that's rooted in the body. Because the soul is the me'ached. When the soul is in the body, in addition to the eternality of the soul, which we mentioned a few moments ago, the soul unifies all the different functions of the body into a homogeneous being that's able to function with one identity despite millions of different details in all of the processes of the body and of the emotions and of the intellect and so on and so forth, all the digestive system and the circulatory system and the nervous system and the skeletal structure and all the different systems. When there's a neshama in the body, it unifies it all into one cohesive unit. But when the neshama leaves, what happens? The body breaks apart and the body becomes scattered pieces, ultimately disjointed chalakim and elements of a skeleton. And everything rots and everything breaks apart, and we no longer see each part in light of the whole. And so very, very deeply, the Zohar is revealing a level of existence that transcends what we can see with our eyes, that transcends the physical mundanity around us. It's the spiritual realm, the realm of the soul, the realm of unity. And about this realm of unity, says the Me'ashilach in today's teaching, says the Tzaddik, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, thank you. You did the right thing in breaking them, in breaking the luchas. Moshe Rabbeinu was very, very insecure and unsure whether he had done the right thing. He broke the luchas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself wrote and etched the Aseret Sedibros onto the luchas, and Moshe shattered them. L'chein herolei Hashem Yisbarach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe ki be'emes lemala, in an upper realm, in the realm revealed by the Zohar, the deeper level beyond just physical action and rote behavioralism, but the meaning, the depth behind it, the neshama, the vitality, the vibrancy. On that level, and in light of that realm beyond, ki be'emes, he says, lemala ein shum pirud. Above, in that world, there's no disparity, there's no separateness. All there is the light of unity, is the light of spirituality, is the light of the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'rak ba'olam hazeh nisra'eh kinifradin. It's only in this world that the luchas looked like they were broken, but the truth is, in the spiritual realms beyond, realms of unity, realms that are able to bind everything together into a whole, where good and also the opposite all come together to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'shnei yitzrecha, where the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov come together to form a gigantic kli, a vessel for the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory in the world. Memela, Moshe Rabbeinu is comforted by this, to realize there's a place where there's still one. And so very, very deeply, it's possible perhaps to suggest that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, taking responsibility for this, that the Torah won't be forgotten, both because of the eternality of the Torah and because of this element of the neshmasa d'oraisa and the simcha that it's able to bring us, that will accompany us to the finish line, berachamim, so that we can leave galus basking in the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the appreciation of His endless love and care for and concern for each and every one of us. There's a deeper message also. It's because in light of that level of Torah that's being revealed, there's no concept of shikha. There's no concept of forgetfulness. Why? Because forgetfulness is rooted in the broken luchas. Broken luchas, that's only on a this-worldly level. That's only through the prism of nigla. But the prism of nister, the luchas were never broken. Memela, there's no shikha. Memela, of Shimon bar Yochai, who's revealing the neshmasa d'oraisa from a realm of achdus, from a realm of neshama, of soul, of unity. Memela, of Shimon is able to say, Ki loisi shakach mi pizarai. Because there's no element of shikha in the realm beyond where the luchas, like the Me'ashilach teaches us here, are still whole. Loisi shakach mi pizare, ki loisi shakach mi pizare, sofetevis Yochai, zarai, a reference to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who took personal responsibility to see to it that in his revelation of the deeper elements of our tradition, in his revelation of the sod, in his revelation of the nishmasa d'oraisa, the guf and the gufei halachas, and all the ways in which we act, both in the holy realm and in the realm of the mundane, we're able to see every element of life unified under one banner of Gilui Kvodo Yisbarach, to reveal the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the world that we encounter, circumstances that we experience, and each and every facet of our own lives and personalities, to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to recognize Him. And therefore, everything becomes unified, everything becomes enlivened, and we will make it, Be'ezer Hashem, to the finish line. A few steps away, minutes to dawn mamish, and the sun is already rising. The sunlight of redemption is already filling the world, and you and I are zocha to bask in it. So very important in our generation, as we've spoken about so many times in the past, and all of you ever know this already, but it needs chizuk every single day to learn something pnimi. We have to learn halacha. We love to learn halacha. We're able to find, through the prism of Pnimius, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's incredible mercy in every detail of halacha as well. But in order to do that, we need a foundation to have the prism through which to view all of those elements. And that prism is the prism of the teachings of the tzaddikim, who are drawing dafka on the Torah of Sod, that brought it down to us practically, the teachings of the Hasidic masters, the teachings of the Nefesh HaChaim, the teachings of all the Pnimi tzaddikim, Rav Dessler and Rav Hutner and the Ramchal and Rav Kook, so many tzaddikim that went ahead and provide us with a lens through which we can see everything in a way of neshama, in a way of pnimius, in a way of true achdus, in a way of vitality, vibrancy, the princess that we've lost personally, collectively, but we are Baruch Hashem slowly but very surely regaining. B'siyata d'shmaya. Thanks for listening. Apologize for the length. Have the most wonderful, wonderful day.